As promised, I was going to bring to you one of my favorite people in the world every other month, and this is Fernando, my buddy, who's my all-time favorite yogi, but he's much more than a yogi. And I asked him a couple days ago what he would like to speak about, and he wanted to talk about breathing or breath work, and I've done quite a bit of breathing and breath work with Fernando, and he said he just got back from a trip from Portugal where he did some of that there, and he thought it would be a perfect topic. So I love these chats and interviews because I don't have to say much. So Fernando, take it away, buddy.
Yeah, man. Thanks for doing this. I obviously appreciate you just as much. You're one of my favorite people, and I really honor any opportunity to talk to you specifically. So thank you for this opportunity. And yeah, breathing. I mean, what's more important than that? What should have a higher level of priority than how we properly fuel our own bodies? And I say this to you because even on this trip to Portugal, when I'm traveling, amongst a new land and with foreigners, came up almost every interaction. I was not meeting tons of people, but I was having very close interactions with my driver, my tour guide, people I met at the coffee shop, the local spot that I ended up going to pretty regularly, the maitre d there. And at some point in the conversation, it always led to breathing. And one really specific was at a cocktail coffee bar, which is a great pairing. And I was just sitting outside by myself. I was alone for every meal, and was just really being catered to by the travel agency, essentially. But I was sitting down and I was having a martini and just kind of looking at this amazing view. And I hear a Scottish couple, and I mean like super Scottish. And I grew up with a buddy who's my best friend, and I was at their house all the time, Big Scott. And I like, it's always like, hey, do you know like the one person that's really Scottish? You do that. And I was like, hey, any chance, because they're from Glasgow. And I said, any chance you guys know a Margaret McCockerty? She lives in Glasgow. And lady goes, not a chance. Right? Like, there's so many of us. Her name was Margaret. Her husband's name was Alec. And before you know it, we're just talking lives and back and forth. And the gentleman starts talking about some of his physical limitations. We were talking about all kinds of stuff, and people open up to me about everything. And he started talking to me how he's in so much pain, how he's so stiff. And much like everyone could tell an accent, and even in Portugal, like I talk and they're like, oh, I know your family's from the north. Like just listening to someone speak, you can notice where they're from. Well, I seem to have the same ear, but for your nose. I can almost tell when someone's not really using it through the sound of their voice, or even just kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like something you're tuned into. And I said to him, kind of, very kindly, in not an offensive way, and I said like, hey, do you notice that it's maybe hard to breathe from your nose a little bit? Kind of like trying to gently guide him towards this discovery. And before I can even finish saying this, his wife smacks him across the chest. And she's a professional dancer. She's like grew up dancing. And if you're a pro at anything, especially movement, the proper way to breathe and fuel yourself and control your emotions is very paramount. So she's been telling him to use his nose, right? That he's not using his nose, that he's not breathing properly. And when he's sleeping, there's even less of the use of his nose. But he is so dialed into me. I am talking to him about the nitric oxide in the nostrils, about the improved circulation, the minimizing of the inflammation and these aches and these pains and this tightness in his body. And I could see him now. Like he's now using his nose. Like he is instantly changing the way he's breathing. His wife has been smacking him with this information, right? But sometimes we're too close.
You can't be the prophet in your own forest, man. You
Yeah,
know that.
it's just too close. It's like, and also the irony too is that we don't want our problems to be solved so fucking quickly. Like, how dare you have a solution to my like, struggle in life, my cross to bear? And it's like, hey, breathe better. And it's like, oh, come on. But literally, the mere fact that I can decide to breathe like this or like this, and then I can control every aspect of how I use energy in my body, that is like a miraculous gift. And to have forgotten that and to get so caught up in all this thinking that we forget to fuel the body properly. Of course, we're having low level emotions. Of course, we're having aches and pains. Of course, we have these deep cravings and all these kinds of things when we're not properly fueled. And most importantly, it's not that we're just properly fueling, the body is tapped into this very finite current that can only feed you based on demand. It's not going to invent another massive amount of energy for you if it's never been called upon it. And the breath is the most important, use it or lose it. Because what's happening inside the body, you can't breathe yourself more oxygen. You can't go and fill yourself up with more oxygen. Your blood cells are already saturated. They're maxed out. Packing more riders onto the train isn't going to change the speed or the method of transportation, right? So what happens? How do you do this? How do you get your red blood cells to unlock, release all of that energy and oxygen that are actually trapped in there? Well, it's not by breathing in more. It's by actually allowing the carbon dioxide, ironically, the opposite, is allowing the carbon dioxide to build inside of your body so that your blood can become acidic enough. And by I mean acidic, I mean by like 2 degrees. And it actually like melts all of the oxygen out of your red blood cells. Now, here's what happens if you don't do that. Those red blood cells will die within 2 to 3 months. And once they're dead, they will not be replaced because they never released the carrying oxygen they had. It's like, oh, he doesn't need it. And so this gentleman, Alec, was not only, you know, losing out on all this nitric oxide with not using his nose, by using his mouth, he's overbreathing. So he's actually creating a lot more stress on his heart, but he's never building a bigger gas tank because all those red blood cells are dying, which is why one of these exercises that I never stop doing anymore is this breath retention, is a morning exercise where I allow myself to hold my breath for extended periods of time so I can demand that my body have this reserve, this capacity, so that if I need to run up a flight of stairs or, fight off a bunch of kids on a soccer field, that I have the gas and I don't automatically default to a, oh my God. It's sometimes adrenaline will kick in if it's something like something that really requires all of your attention and focus. But if you're just generally looking to exercise and improve your fitness levels, you need to breathe. You need to learn how to breathe comfortably, and intentionally, so that you can really increase your body's effectiveness in everything. And this gentleman was like my best friend. I had like my hand on his shoulder, palm on his belly, getting him to use his nose and still inflate his stomach. His wife, tears. Like this family, this Scottish family who has a flat in Portugal, just randomly meets this Joe from New Jersey, and this guy like floated out of the bar, was so happy, was using his nose, and it was just like, wow, this trip was already like worth it. But that was just like a tiny morsel of like so many amazing interactions with people that somehow one way or another led to, you know, a breath conversation.
Yeah, I got a couple things to add. Number one, of course, you're going to meet, being from Kearney,
Yeah,
you're going to meet a Scot,
of
and
course.
hanging down at Scottish American Club every once in a while is just like going deep into a museum. So of course
Yeah.
you're going to meet somebody um, from there. Sometimes people just forget about just basic anatomy. I mean, you touched upon this. Your nose is fully designed to suck in air and oxygen. It's got little tiny hair, cilia. It's got a ton of blood vessels to warm the air. It's got the turbinates to kind of circulate the air, and it's designed for us to breathe through. Our mouth is not designed to breathe through. So, and then the whole nitric oxide thing too, which you mentioned. And then, my first introduction to breathing was really through our holistic type dentist that I brought both Hayden and Kellen to, and they still go to, because they were very, very interested in your airway. And you've probably heard this before, but it's the reason our jaws, our lower jaws, slowly over hundreds of years is receding, and
Hmm.
by receding, it's closing off our trachea, and therefore it's causing most people, particularly kids, to mouth breathe because they don't have that space. And when they mouth breathe, they don't sleep as well, they don't oxygenate well, and then they end up having symptoms that are very similar to ADD, when all they're really not doing, yeah, I know exactly, they're not doing is breathing right. So a real dentist that's interested in airway is going to work to, you know, bring that jaw forward to open that airway so they don't have to open their mouth, and then they can breathe more. And on top of that, they also, some of them suggest, which I don't think you do, or maybe you do, is, and you see it, is the mouth taping to keep your
Mhm.
mouth closed so you're quote unquote forced to breathe through your nose. And I have all sorts of different mouth tapes at home that I tinker with. But anyway, I just had those couple things to add. This
The other huge thing is think about this, and you feel it instantly. When you breathe out of your mouth, you're releasing heat and moisture. You're actually losing water. So imagine this. If the juiciness, if the amount of fluid in your body is what's keeping you mobile and flexible, imagine you're drying out. So you're actually crimping. Well, the face and the mandible specifically is essentially the last place for slack in the body. And you know you have slack when you can do this. That's why this freaking thing gives people joy. When someone can extend their face, your brain gives you a benefit of that. And when we lose slack here, and certainly that's going to happen when you're staring at the ground all day long. I don't care if it's TikTok you're looking at, right? As soon as we start losing moisture, losing heat, crimping the neck, squeezing everything out, of course everything's going to suck. But if we can add not just this proper breathing, but if we can have people know that just the way they sit and the way they hold their neck up is going to either help or make the breath even less efficient, right? It's like you want to have a nice straight hose while you're breathing. You teach somebody how to breathe, but they're doing it like this. Yeah, it's not as helpful. And so giving someone this kind of body awareness, hardware, software, you know my game, giving them these two components and then realizing that, wow, man, once these two things are pretty covered, I'm going to feel good. And it's less about like the job and the thing and the kids and and it's more about how are you holding yourself And how are you feeding yourself?
So to I guess just to cut to the chase, are because people need to see this or have somebody work with them, or and I know you hold them regularly, and I also know you're working on a huge course.
Yes.
Um, are you having any breath work classes at Yoga Mechanics or anywhere soon?
That's a great question. I've actually paused a lot of things.
I noticed that.
Yeah.
I know you did.
Yeah. So I've come off of social media. I've stopped advertising things. I've actually put a pause on my men's groups. I'm only currently committed to my public classes at Signature Fitness, the library, and I have one more workshop that I have committed to. But I've really been working on this course. I didn't realize how big of a task this was because the course is attached to a new site that has new offerings, and I'm working with a company that's really staying on me about content for each thing and images for each thing. So I'm really trying to stay on track as well as stick to a regular practice myself. So I don't have any current offerings outside my classes, but I will say that I am going to a essentially self-hosted retreat. A couple of guys that I met on um, retreat in Texas a few years ago have stayed on a thread together, and we've decided to throw our own retreat for a handful of guys upstate at one of our buddies' farm. And we're each offering practice. And I have a very particular workshop that I'm going to essentially test on these men, but I already know that I'm gonna that'll be my next offering, which is gonna be a hardware software. So there's a little bit of story, um, a lot of breath work, and then a full physical practice immediately following the breath work. It'll be like 2.5 to 3 hours, but I'm assuming that I'll release that around the end of May, June, and I'll start coming back online at around that time, and we'll have more Fernando in the meantime.
All right, all right. So then, if in the meantime, if
Yeah.
anybody wants to attempt to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do it?
Email you@fernrabbit.com.
You at fernrabbit.com. Easy enough.
Yeah, and you can also go to my website, fernrabbit.com, and contact me from there as well. That'll all come down soon, but it's probably still a few months away.
All right. I know I talked to you. It has to be about 6 weeks ago, and I thought that your course was going to be ready sooner. So I guess there's quite a bit more work to it that you're building out.
Yeah, it's more than just the course now. It's this entire sort of platform, which makes sense to just do it all and have it rolled out. The course will likely be released before the site is fully finished, but the course is much closer than the actual site. So
Very
yeah,
good. All right. So I think so I believe the next time we speak on this platform, it seems like everything will be just about ready to roll out.
yes, yeah. That's actually a good marker for me too. Keep me honest. Keep me
All
moving.
right, buddy. Well, I'll see you at the pitch. I'll see you somewhere else around, but it's
Sure.
always great to talk to you. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks. Talk to you soon.
Bye bye.
Later, bud.